Hey, welcome to another episode of Creative Takeover. I'm Art the Poet with
Caitlin Elizabeth.
Today we have Ani and Peri from Eclectic Circa and
Eclectic
OOC. Eclectic OOC. Yes.
And we want to sit down with y'all today because y'all are doing a lot for the artistic community, and we just want to celebrate both of you.
Thank you.
And what y'all are doing for the artists, because it's really appreciated. Let's just dive into it. Let's start with Ani.
Yeah.
How did y'all meet, and what led y'all to forming this partnership that's celebrating creative artists?
I feel really lucky because I intersected at the very beginning of what was the thoughts behind Eclectic. So I was participating in a market called Women of the Future. Ginny from Bon Bon.
Oh, I love that.
I know. And Steph from Wilder Red Co., who is now Shop Studio Tion, we're doing this market to really emphasize and host women makers in our city. And at that market, I met so many cool people. Peri and I did not officially meet in that endeavor, but she definitely attended that market and was like, what is this?
Yes.
And why is this not happening in a retail store?
It's like the universe was almost trying to like bring you guys together.
Yes,
100%.
yes. I swear we did like cross paths that night,
Yes.
but we didn't actually officially meet. But my cousin, who is also a maker, she does knits and macrame, was like, this amazing person is opening up this store. You should definitely look into selling your vintage clothing there. And so I reached out to Peri and was like, I want to be part of whatever it is that you're creating. And pretty much from day one, like my heart was captured by the whole process and the thought behind supporting small businesses and artists and makers, and to do vintage alongside sustainability and sustainable practices within a storefront was just also like, it was making my heart pace in a way that I had not felt before.
I know exactly what you mean. And you found somebody, you guys found each other, and you kind of shared that same vision and you meshed really well together.
Yes.
I love that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. When I met Arthur and he posted online, he was like, who wants to do a podcast? I barely knew him, and I was like, I'm interested.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, finding that synergy and the synchronicities of it is beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can speak from your side too. Yeah.
Yeah. So just going to that market, Women of the Future, was huge. I was like, this is so cool. And, you know, how does the maker experience and the customer experience intersect? Of like, if you want goods, you know, on a random weekday, what do you do when there's no market going on?
Yeah.
And so how do those two things work together and intersect and really work great for the consumers, but also for artists to make a profit?
Yes. And we've talked about how hard it is for artists to kind of find their footing and even to define like their value. Like, I make all these things, but how do I market them?
Yeah.
And so that's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I didn't officially meet Peri at the Level Up conference. She was on the panel, and she was talking about like the difference between like artists using your creative mind and pricing and monetizing off your art, and that really resonated with me. I didn't get a chance to officially meet you that day, but I was like, hi.
Hello.
But you know, can you speak on how the difference between an artist being just a creative versus being a creative entrepreneur and monetizing off their art?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, you know, so many people, especially with COVID and all of that, so many people became like hobbyists and found this like untapped talent that they hadn't had before.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is really take people that have started that journey, that have started to take their art seriously, have started to kind of dip their toes into what does that mean to be a business? And we really want to take them through that whole progression of, you know, you start to sell your items, you really figure out what does the market need from you, you start to kind of shape your craft to what the market is looking for, and then we've really seen beautiful progression of artists like hiring help, you know, hiring their first employee, hiring marketing help, and you know, really become this like sustainable business that can become their only source of income or like a huge part of their family's economic picture. And so it's just been really, really beautiful to see how that kind of natural progression happens if you really pour into it.
Yeah.
And we hope to be a stepping stone for that. We've even had people open their own storefronts after, you know, being successful within our four walls. And so that's really how we see ourselves, as kind of an incubator for the creative process.
I love that.
So you mentioned helping people kind of learn how to do those things. Is that something you guys educate artists when they come in? Is there like a formal training, or you just kind of walk alongside them?
Yeah, it's not so much a formal program, but it's kind of something that happens naturally because our artists are working on shift together, and so they're really like sharing best practices, teaching each other.
That's cool.
And then we do have a little bit of formal training, like we'll do accounting or help people kind of figure the ins and outs of social media or things like that.
Because that can be intimidating as an artist, and I'm a creator myself, and like the social media, I'm like, why am I going to put this out there? Like that's, it's overwhelming. And accounting for sure. I do art, not numbers. Like that's, but
art, not numbers.
Numbers. That's another reason for Creative Takeover, though, is to create a community of artists who like have those questions like I did, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't know numbers, but sharing space and hearing how other artists went through it makes it less intimidating.
Totally. There's a huge intimidation factor.
It is. And we do everything we can to make sure that that space feels safe for people to ask their questions. Yeah. And definitely we've had, people ask for either one-on-one sit-downs or they solve it before they even get to us because they realize, oh, well, I was working with so-and-so and they handle shipping this way and like saves me this much money, Yeah. Right? And so there's it's a big, big communal component to this storefront, and it is intended to be a bit of a playground in terms of how people decide how they want to create. So we've had people come in with different mediums that transform into other mediums, and we want to give that space for people to grow in their artistic expression because we know artists pretty well now, and it's like they can't just stick to one thing.
No.
There's got to be so many things that they're exploring.
Being surrounded by other creatives gets that creative juices flowing within ourselves. So like if I see somebody doing like paint pours, I'm like, I think I could do that.
I'm like, I want to dabble in that.
I tell people I have creative ADD. I can't just do one thing. I got to do it all.
That's so common.
It's a lot of our and we love it. We love it. We try to protect where we can to make sure that within our storefront that people who are creating don't feel like they're being edged into, and that's a really delicate part of the process for both of us. We're curators in the greatest sense, trying to curate our space to feel unique, but also make sure that everybody feels honored and that their toes aren't being stepped on.
So that's a great segue. You have 3 spaces. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between all 3 stores?
That's a really good question.
Well, I guess, location.
So sequentially, it started downtown. Everything started downtown, and that is the biggest of our spaces. Mm-hmm. And also, so the spaces themselves kind of tell us what the story of what they want to be, but also the traffic. So downtown gets like more locals, whereas OCC gets a healthy mix of locals and tourists. And so that kind of dictates what our artists are passionate about, and what is selling is, a local that comes in, 3 times a month is maybe looking for something different than someone who's never been in before, is visiting from elsewhere. And then Circa was a really natural progression because we had so many vintage and retro curators and creators on our list that we were like, well, this space needs a space all its own.
Now, our friend Allie has some clothes at Circa. Rec Collective, shout out, we love you. She has nothing but amazing things to say about that. So
and that's a fun one because Allie was on our wait list for almost like, I want to say a year and a half. And it just wasn't making sense in the other 2 stores that we had. And we just kept trying to explore it, and we were like, oh, this isn't it. No, this one won't fit. And so, we opened a whole nother store just for people like Allie, who had been on our wait list for a long time.
But I think it's beautiful that you understand when it's not working, you're willing to wait it out and willing to make it fit, and you're communicating with that artist. Because there have been some stores Arthur and I've been into, and they're like, we already have someone who paints. So you have to wait for that person to die. Or
oh my gosh. And that's the delicate part of it. We're always being like sensitive to where people are going. This town has a very natural transiency to it. Like people come and go because of the military. And so we get a lot of people who come, and then it's this beautiful process of like when somebody leaves, there's naturally somebody that we already have to fill that gap, and we want to do that in a way that honors both artists. We just had that happen with a candle maker that we just love and had been on the journey with for 2 years, and they were ready to move on, and somebody just happened to pop up that weekend that was a perfect fit. So
I love that.
You kind of just trust the process
and the timing. That's beautiful.
Trust the timing for sure.
These spaces are big. Like your Tejon location.
I
realized couple months ago, I've never been through the whole store. And I was like, there's a whole back area that I never explored. I was like, where did this come from? I'm like,
Yep.
been here. Where have you been?
Yeah.
I was like,
I went
go
to the one-
front in the middle. I never went to the back.
Yeah, and I went to the
Wow.
one in OCC right across the
Yeah.
street here, and I felt the same way. I went in there on a first Friday, and I thought I had seen everything. And then I went there another day, and it was just like, oh my god, like yeah, it was really fun.
Tunnels, right?
But the cool thing is, y'all have everything from candles to stickers to artwork to handcrafted items.
Jewelry.
Yeah, jewelry. You
Jewelry.
have stuff for everybody.
We really try to like have a diversity of, you know, not only products but demographics that we cater to,
Yeah.
because we know that there's a wide demographic of people that want to support local,
Yeah.
that want to support unique items and not just, you know, big box stores.
Well, the first thing I thought of when I saw this wide variety of stuff in there is that that's like a family outing, right? There's something for your teenagers, something for your small kids, something for you as a parent, like,
Right.
and that's just a really inviting place.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Y'all definitely embody community. And are all these locations today are artist co-ops? Okay.
Yeah, and
How's
they're-
that program work?
Yeah, it's actually a three-pronged process. So we do have people pay base rent for the space that they're using. Based on that rent, they'll work a certain amount of hours in this space, just based on how much space they're physically taking up. And then we take a small percentage to help us pay for our management team and just overall overhead costs. So yeah, every person is expected to be in the storefront, participating as if it is their own store, because it is.
Yeah.
In so many ways, it's their products, it's their, you know, perspective being put out there, and we want people to treat it as such. So
I like that.
Well, and what Arthur was talking about earlier, that community and relationship building is so important in the artist community. We have talked a lot about how there's almost this stigma that I don't believe is true, that art has to be competitive, right? But once you start meeting the artists in the community, you realize it's a collaborative community. You just have to get over that reputation, the stigma.
Totally. It's that push and pull of like capitalism, right?
Yes,
And,
yeah.
And you know, if you're succeeding means that I can't, or you know what I mean? And we just truly don't believe that. And we live and embody the opposite of that, that a high tide raises all ships, and that you know, $1 spent in our store, even if they don't buy my item, is good for me, as good as if they're buying your item.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if they gift Ani's item to someone else, then maybe that brings them in and they support me the next time. Like, everything that we do truly believes that, you know, it's good for all of us, and it's good
I
for the
love that.
community as
That's
well.
why I love artist co-ops. We didn't have that many in Dallas, but I've noticed here in the Springs there's several, and in Denver area. So I love that business model, because like you said, you're the boss. You know, treat this as your business. And I love that, because now that competitive nature is gone. And it's like, hey, we're doing this for the community. We're doing this for all of us.
Speaking of being the boss, you guys are the boss. How do you find time to balance self-care when you're running a business and you have so many artists looking to you for guidance and all of the responsibilities of a shop and the accounting and stuff like that?
Woo!
Yeah.
She's like, on it.
Just like mentally juggling when you ask that question.
Yeah.
I feel like this year in particular, like we've always been transparent with one another about our needs and just where we're at in seasons of life. And this year I have been much more transparent with Peri about like, hey, I can't handle as much as I thought that I could.
Yeah.
You know, I have 2 young kids, and trying to run my own vintage business still within the businesses. There's so much happening. And I think the best thing personally that we have done is empower our management team members to really take ownership of their storefront. The second I had my second child, we had Emma over at Eclectic OCC take over our store, and she has just grown in leaps and bounds in her leadership within our space. That people really associate the storefront with her, and I love it.
Yeah.
It has allowed us to step back a little bit, you know, without obviously losing sight of making sure the whole picture is still coming together. But it gives us the chance to empower these other people that are really passionate and as bought in as we are to the concept. And so for me, it's like just employing really excellent people and fostering to their needs.
Yeah, you're creating the culture.
Yes,
totally.
Yes,
Was there some fear in that, in sort of starting to give more?
Yes and no, and I think everything that we've done has been really like thoughtful and incremental. So, you know, we bring people in and with the full trust that they are going to rise to the occasion, that they are going to be trainable, that they are going to buy into our vision. But we've never done too much too fast, I would say. Like it's little bite-sized pieces.
Yep.
And if you can take this piece and thrive, then we're going to give you more. And just really about the culture and creating a culture of transparency and grace for one another. And just, it's been a process to answer your question. It's been a process of, we definitely go through seasons where we're like, I feel like I'm eat, sleep, breathing eclectic. And then we have seasons where it's like, you know what? Take 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
We got
That's
this.
okay.
We got this over here. So it ebbs and flows. And I think that we've both gotten better at just creating those personal boundaries. And it's kind of like as the management team rises up to meet us, then we can kind of, I don't know, just protect ourselves a little bit more and protect.
And I think you'll
personal
attract
time.
the right people with that mindset. You're
Absolutely.
giving trust, and
Yeah.
that really does empower people to want to just be the boss of something. They want to do their best, and that's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think they know they'll find support, but also that culture of grace. Like if they do something and it's maybe not what we would have done, or everything is, we can figure it out. You know
And
what I mean?
sometimes as artists and like a person in recovery, like I have to learn the hard way. Like, and so sometimes I don't want to hear the right way to do it because, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
you gotta
like
figure that out
having
for
that
yourself.
grace for people. But I think you said the most important thing is communication and transparency.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that has been huge for us.
I noticed like none of the stuff in any of your stores is overly expensive. So how do y'all decide like price points? For example, I would say you mentioned candles. A candle. Do you work with the artist to come up with a good price point based off previous, data that you have, or you're like, hey, that one's gonna be 40?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's such a delicate ecosystem because when one person is underpriced and one person is overpriced, it creates like a weird perception of the value of those two things. And so we do have to do a lot of coaching of like, hey, this is kind of the baseline of where we should be at. And also teaching artists to value themselves, because a lot of times they'll just be like, oh, I just want people to have my art. I don't care if I'm making money.
I went through that.
Yeah.
I went through that. I was like, here, somebody, I want to buy that. I'm like, you can have it. They're like, no, I want to give you money. It took me a while to get comfortable with capitalism.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
With the art classes that I teach, same thing. When I was first starting, I was like, I'll do this for free. No one knows who I am. And I like struggled with like feeling like an imposter. Like I've never done this before. And people are, and the first person offered to pay me, I was like, no, thank you. And now I'm like, oh my God.
It's that growth, and that confidence building that I think helps us to get there.
Yeah.
So when people do come in like underpriced, we will walk around the store even with them and be like, here's what somebody else is charging for this amount, and here's
that's a great
how much they
exercise.
sell.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're very successful in this price point.
Right,
or
right.
whatever,
And just giving ranges as opposed to being like, it must be $40. It's like, why don't we dabble in the 36 to 40 range,
That's good.
'cause
Giving
we
them
don't wanna
options
force.
also empowers them.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then they can make that call.
Yeah, and getting them to see why. Like, it's not only your materials, it's your experience, it's your time, it's your, and some people are like, okay, I need a formula for like, if it takes an hour of my time, this is, like factoring that in. And other people are, just kind of like, well, I'll do what the market is doing. And so just kind of meeting people where they're at.
Yeah. Because the market, especially during tourist season, they're like, I need some with Colorado flag on it, or it says Colorado, Colorado Springs, and you're like, okay, you got a lot of that around here.
Yeah.
What's going to make yours different?
Right, so
They're like,
right.
well, mine's going to be a Pokemon. Okay.
We had a Pokemon alpaca sweater. It's like this awesome poncho
Oh, I
stuff.
love alpaca.
It was to one of our own vendors, so I just think,
There's something for
whatever's
everyone.
your
There
mark.
is
Yes.
something for everyone.
Yeah.
I like the fact that y'all have a community board downtown. Because I'll just go in the store, like, put it by the flyer and run out.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Find out what's
it's
happening.
okay, you don't have to run.
No, you can tell us what you're all about. Yeah.
I'm like, because if I come in here and I go further in the store, I'm going to end up spending like money back and forth.
Fair assessment.
Well, and also
Yeah.
we've had some bad experiences where people have been, not very supportive of hanging flyers. They want to know all these details, and like it's literally for art. Like it's just a flyer for an art event, and then it's like you have to go through this weird screening process. So like that's part of it. If you can sneak in and just tack it up on the board.
Yeah.
No, but there's so much stuff in there, and I'm just like, hey, because now that I discovered this back part of the store that has other items, I'm like, I want to get that, because y'all have like these little plant things that I'm obsessed with. I'm like, I need 5 of them.
That is the danger of the store for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have.
For you guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And for the artists, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
So how's the business changed since you opened store 1 and now you have 3 stores? How has it changed and evolved as far as not just, hey, we open more stores, but your approach to business and approach to dealing with artists and customers?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
Take a day to unpack.
Yeah. I mean, things have changed in that there's so much more saturation of artists in the community now, which is amazing, right?
Yes.
Like we're so proud of this community and just how many artists are like making a go at or having a creative business here. But it comes with challenges. Keeping, like Ani said, making sure that toes aren't being stepped on, keeping things like unique enough, that things aren't oversaturated, that everyone has space to thrive. That's something that we've had to grow and change with and you know, make mistakes and learn lessons. And so that's something that has definitely changed. We've dabbled in changing with the times and with the economy of like, you know, should that be an online store? Should that be a store in Littleton? Like we've dabbled in all of these things and really just always come back to in person is going to be our bread and butter. This community is really where we thrive. So I would say we've tried different things and just keep coming back to let's do what we do best.
But it sounds like you're open to continuous learning.
Absolutely, especially with everything changing constantly.
Yeah.
We just want to be a place of stability and safety always for artists and for customers. And I think a big part of that is watching our vendors thrive is like the ultimate goal. So we're not rent collectors. I say this all the time to our vendors. We're not just here to collect your rent. We're here to see you thrive. So if something's not working, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we can try every avenue of what your creative headspace can make before I just say this isn't gonna work.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're much better at curating than we were at the start. At the start, we were just kind of like whoever comes in is in. And now it's like I actually don't know that you're gonna thrive at downtown. I think you would do better at OCC, or I think we should try your medium at Circa. And because we have 3 storefronts, it makes it a lot easier for us to say like, just give us a second. Let us figure out what the best space is for you to see you succeed. And that does require a bit of trust on the behalf of the artist, you know, to just say, okay, well, when the time comes, let me know, you know. But it has been just different, you know, craftiness versus, you know, true artisanal versus there's so many different definitions now of what an artist, a maker, a curator is that like trying to make it all come together and be this cohesive experience is actually quite hard.
Y'all make it look easy. Just
You do.
You mentioned earlier like what the market wants because you have artists like their pet project. I'm passionate about this. I like drawing dogs for whatever reason with purple hats, and that's all they want to draw. And you're like you're a skilled artist. You can do other things, but they're like. I just want to draw the dog with the hat. That's it. And do you ever have to coach, either one of you have to coach an artist versus on what the market wants versus their pet project that's not selling? It looks great, but it's just not something that's going to sell. Nobody wants it. How's that conversation?
We've had a few of those recently. And it really just comes down to finding the perfect intersection between what are you passionate about making, like maybe it's not your top thing, but you know what's in your top 5 of passionate about making that is going to
just giving
be
more
marketable
options again.
Yeah. And we say that all the time. If you have a variety of items within a variety of price ranges, you're just more likely to see movement frequently. But if all of your, you know, pet portraits are 200 and up, and you don't have little pet stickers or pet buttons or pet, you know what I mean? So we try to get super creative and just say like, what's already working in the store that you can adapt to make it your own. And that's it is hard. It requires a little bit of vulnerability on the behalf of the artist to say, hey, I know my stuff isn't moving and I want to do something about it. And then a vulnerability on our side to say, like, it just might not work. And if it doesn't work, like we have lots of other places now that can take you that might be a better fit. Or like maybe some people are just exclusively better online, or there's a wider audience for if it's too niche. Do you know what I mean? But for the most part, being in the storefront means you got to be pretty open to having these conversations with the 2 of us.
Yeah, and that can be intimidating for some artists who are very introverted.
Yeah, we really try. We really try to make it a safe space, and even if that means that they're talking to our management team members first, and then communicating to us, or like,
Yeah.
Those are people we trust wholly with our businesses as well. So it feels good that no matter what, they can talk to somebody, but always trying to bring it back to like.
Yeah, and you're pretty much describing a creative mentorship as part of being an artist in your co-op.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's they mentor each other a lot though.
Yeah.
Like, let me just say. Like,
Yeah, well, the
hierarchy
program overall is like a mentorship.
It's a perfect grounds for people to say like, gosh, maybe I should reach out to someone so they've been doing this really successfully. Or, but yeah, even after this, I'm gonna go back to the store and help somebody who's socially media intimidated.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go help her take a few photos, and that's just sometimes that's what the job requires for that day. But no day is really the same. So it just depends on what the artist's needs are.
Like, I look at Circa and I see the social media on there, and I'm like, they don't have nothing for me yet. But the videos, they catch my attention.
Yeah.
You know, even though I'm like, I'm not the target audience for them right now.
Sure.
But those videos are catchy. I see why people are like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
going to go buy that purse. I'm going to go buy that shirt, you know.
And your time will come, Arthur.
I was gonna say that's good feedback.
That's actually great
because-
feedback.
Yeah, we have a lot of awesome. Circa is the store that I think we've really nailed that kind of gender differential there.
Yeah.
But that's such good feedback, and Circa was really fun from a social media perspective because Ani was really able to like, okay, we got a fresh slate.
Yeah.
How can we just make it fun, not too serious? And Ani and Missa have really been nailing that. So it's
Yeah, the social media is fun. I like the fact that y'all have like a pop-up every now and then. The art, you know, the designers or whatever, they're outside of the store.
Yeah.
They're not
Yes,
just
yeah.
coming to the store. No, they're outside. Like, hey, this is what we made.
Yes.
You want to buy something? You know, and they'll have a conversation.
Right.
And it's not buy something. It's more of like, hey, what do you like? You know, and they have organic conversations, which do lead to sales.
Right.
You
Totally.
know,
Right.
so it's like I've never felt pressured in any of your stores to buy anything.
Well, and that's
Good,
something
good.
as an artist that when you can convey to somebody the why or your passion behind creating the art, I feel like that increases your sales because anybody can do a scenery or painting, right? But
Right.
why did you do this? Like that's what's going to make it stand out.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about all of your shops, we're in Colorado. You see a lot of, you know, mountain landscapes and stuff like that. I don't really see a lot of them in your shops.
Yeah, we really try to like. You can go to a tourist, shop
Yeah.
and get a T-shirt, like you
Yeah,
said, and
yeah.
you can get a postcard or whatever anywhere. But if you want something that's truly like unique and artisanal and sparks some kind of emotion, we really try to have that. Whether it's a Pikes Peak themed thing or something that's just totally off the wall. We want it to not feel like you got it from, just any...
Yeah, the airport.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about you. I got this at the
Yeah,
airport.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Thought about you on my way out. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like the little things, the designs, the packaging.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like y'all care about the shop and the artists care about it.
Yes.
So it's like, it's this high, value in the sense that, hey, you're shopping, you deserve to be treated right, you deserve something that's packaged correctly, and we're going to give it to you if you want
Yeah,
it.
and as a customer, that feels good to purchase something that comes in a nice package or a cute little bag. So that's incredibly
we really,
important.
like, pride ourselves on the experiential
Yeah.
part. Like, it's gonna smell good. You're gonna
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
an awesome conversation,
Right.
and
people care about you.
exactly,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get anything under the sun online right now, you
Yeah.
know, and so having an experience in person is really
Yeah.
like what we strive for. So I'm so glad you guys feel that. Thank you.
Now, y'all curated this, and y'all work at the stores.
We do.
Yep.
How important is that to each one of you to continue to put time into the store as far as working?
I mean, deeply important. I feel
It's
like
like your baby.
it is. It is. Yeah. And we keep joking. We're like, we're not having any more store babies. we're done. Because we want to be present to each storefront. And like right now, I feel like my time is split the most across. And then Peri's still got a really good pulse on downtown because that's her original, baby. And for me, it was OCC. So getting to empower Emma to do that, but then also getting to like pour as much as I can into Circa in its first year. And last week was a funny one where it was just like we had these snow days, and I was sick with my kids sick, you know, the week before, and the whole time I'm just like, the store's covered. This is amazing.
Yeah.
That is a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. I was on the schedule, but I walked away from it, and it's still thriving.
Yep.
So like, it's a both and. We want to be there. We desire to be in the storefronts to really experience and remind ourselves why we do it. You know.
Yeah.
It's important to like keep the finger on the pulse of what's actually happening there, and there's honestly no better feeling than being there for a really special interaction. Like, you know, there was a woman a couple weeks ago that she found a t-shirt from an Australian artist that was her neighbor in Australia, and she found this t-shirt from like 1984.
Oh, wow.
And you know, she picked it up and she just starts weeping, and
Oh,
she's
wow.
like, this man was my neighbor and I've never seen his work anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
And so then for me to be able to text the vendor and say like, oh my gosh, this like amazing interaction happened.
Yeah.
You totally made her whole week. She's visiting from, you know, somewhere in California. And so like being able to personally convey that to the artist if they can't be there themselves is just like literally the best feeling in the world.
For sure.
Yeah.
And super impactful.
I love those type of stories.
It's so cool.
What do you guys have planned for 2025?
Yeah.
I mean,
One day at a
Put you on the
time.
spot. Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking that far
Yeah.
ahead, if I'm being honest. I think we're going to really be present. And that's one of the things that she and I have both tried to seek, is to not constantly be like, what's the next thing? What's the next step? Because that is capitalism in its true sense. It's like you got to keep moving and growing and doing all this. And I'm like, what if we just settle in to the beauty of what we are doing right now?
That's really good wisdom.
Because we have been... for a while there, we were having a store every year, right?
Yeah.
With Littleton and then OCC, Littleton, and then Circa. And so it's like really beautiful to see that we can actually just sit and be still and be in our space and love what we're doing.
Yeah.
Not try to
That's
be
incredible.
seeking the next thing.
Right, to like deepen instead of broaden.
Yep.
You know, like how can we go deeper with
Right.
what we're doing?
Really
and just
take
get
root.
better.
Yeah.
Yes, get better at what we're already doing. And there's so much that comes along with that, like deepening relationships, deepening what's happening in the community, really pouring into the artists that are already here instead of like grasping at who's coming next, or, you know, and I think our artists really appreciate that.
I do. And I've seen, you know, y'all working with Copper and a creative sector partnership and stuff like that. It's like you're getting more information. Like, how can we improve our processes?
Yes.
How can we have a deeper impact on the community?
Yes.
Or, you know, with other businesses.
Yes.
And I love that, you know. And I remember at the last creative sector meetup, you were all over the room. You were talking to everybody. You're like, hey, what do you do? What do you do? You know, and it was cool because the whole meeting was just very great organic conversations.
Yep.
About like customers, planning, marketing, things of that nature that sometimes we know but we forget.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it's okay to forget these things, because when we're reminded, then we're like, oh, let's go do this now. You know?
But those relationships are like the bread and butter, really.
Yep. And there's so much to become an expert at, or like become really in your zone of genius about. And we've done really well. Like, oh, we can dabble all day long and we can like be proficient at a million things, but can we just be in our zone of genius about a few things?
Yes.
You know,
That's great.
So I think that's really what we're both excited about.
Yeah.
I'm like, zone of genius. I've never heard that phrase.
Gay
but
Hendricks.
I love it.
That is a great, right? Yeah.
Yes, Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. He's a really great author, but yeah.
Awesome. Do you guys have anything coming up for the holiday season? Most importantly, I wanted to ask about First Friday. Is that something you guys continue through the winter?
Yeah, so we do First Friday all winter long. First Friday is mostly a space for galleries to thrive, but we really want to capture those people that are out walking around, that are enjoying. So we typically have some kind of fun pop-up for First Friday. And then, there's a whole slew of holiday things happening. You know, downtown has got parades and character strolls, and Small Business Saturday is like our biggest day of the year.
Yeah, it's like our Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. We're gearing up for that. We're going to be going all day, like 9 to 7. So
how do people find out about these events?
We really try to blast them on our social media.
Okay.
Yep. And the beauty of having a cooperative space like we have is, not only do we have our own followers, but our artists have followers too. And with everything, like all of the arrows kind of pointing back.
Yeah, really expanding your reach.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
And the cool thing about the downtown store is right by the park. So you can go ice skating.
Exactly.
Me and my ex, we used to go to the store.
Yeah.
Then we'd go to Pikes Peak Lemonade and get some hot chocolate.
Totally.
Then we'd go put the stuff in the car and then come back and it was like, what's the ice skate? We never did ice skate. We'll just watch people ice skate.
Sure.
Like, yeah, we're going to do that. Yeah, one day.
It's a whole vibe though, you know, just going down and having that small town community feel. It's really special. So we love people to come down and just spend a little of their time with us as well.
Yeah, we can't overemphasize how awesome we chose these blocks in particular because there's such concentration of artists, of community, of awesome coffee shops and cafes. And, so really coming down and making a day of it or coming down with a shopping list and like, can you hit all of these stores? Hit as many people on your list as possible and then resort to online if we can't fill a need. Like these blocks are just
Well, it sounds like
great
gamification. Like,
totally. Totally. So just, enjoying all that downtown and OCC have to offer because there's so many little hidden gems and to be in this space and be like, how did we not know that it's right next door?
Right
so,
well, I think there's a misconception with downtown and with OCC that things are too expensive. And so I think it's part of our responsibility as artists to educate people on you can pay less than that for something on Amazon, but you're not getting the experience. You're not getting quality a lot of the time. And you're not supporting our local community.
Yes.
And there's meetings going on currently about that very thing as far as how can the city help support the creative environment.
Absolutely.
Little things like free parking on Sundays.
Correct.
Free parking after 6 o'clock. What can we do to bring more traffic into OCC or downtown? So those are like ongoing discussions that business owners are having left and right because it's like, city, you can do more.
And that's a good point, and something I try to convey to a lot of people is, as artists and creatives, we have a seat at the table with city council. We have a seat at the table with city planning and development. Our input matters, and I think a lot of us in the creative community, we forget that we have a voice. And that's the importance of community, because when we band together, we can start to navigate how to make our voices heard.
Of course there are challenges, with any kind of government, city government or, anything, but I do feel like we live in like the perfect size city for us to be heard and to make real change. We're not just like tiny fish in a giant pond. I think that there actually are opportunities for change here, and that's something that I'm just super grateful for.
I'm super excited just to be talking with you guys. Like, I'm super pumped up now. Like, welcome to the tribe. Or
We're here.
One of the things that y'all touched on it earlier, women-owned businesses. Where I'm from, there's few and far between, in Texas. But here in Colorado Springs, I met so many amazing business owners who are women. And I know you have kids. I don't know. Do you have kids all the time?
Just fur babies.
Still babies.
And one of them's little, so.
They're kids that don't talk back.
Exactly.
How important is that to you as far as being a role model for other women and for little girls to see women owning a business and thriving in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird. When I had my second kiddo in 2021, it started this like baby train within our community. I'm really not kidding.
It's in the water.
Just, something happened, right? And everybody blames it on COVID, but I think there was also a little bit of just like, I remember Chelsea from House Collective being like, I want to know how you're doing this because I want to do this someday too. I want to have a family and I want to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. They have a concept very similar to ours, and I was just like, it's all doable when you lean on other people, right? And that's what I do 24/7. And so I think a lot of our makers felt like, wait, hold on, this whole thing was created. Our business was created so that I wouldn't have to be attending to a store 24/7, but that I can work my hours, but I can also bring my kid with me if I want to. We basically had kiddos in the shop from birth to 6 months, and that's pretty comfortable. And then there's a natural like tapering.
They
They
become
realized,
too
they're
active.
moving.
Yeah.
Which happened with mine too. He was in the shop till he was 8 months. And I think that there was just this natural feeling of like, we're all supporting each other in this, and we're going to carry your child while you're going and getting your stuff restocked.
Yeah.
And so there was this natural feeling of community that just came along. And then I think there was a lot of just non-competitive, that
I
feeling
like
of
that.
like, we
Yep.
don't need to be competing. Nobody's competing for, anything right now. So when one of us is like struggling or having a, just harder time, like, we're going to help raise you up as much as we can. And we'll do your restocks for a few weeks if you need us to, if you've had a loss in the family or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big part of it for us.
And I think women are just like the lifeblood of a community.
Oh, yeah.
And, we've got amazing men too. And we've just got such healthy and supportive masculine figures that like help keep us all,
Right. It brings some balance.
Totally. But us skewing more feminine has just been a really beautiful like healing for a lot of us, I think,
Agreed.
that have, maybe grew up with that kind of mean girl culture.
Yeah.
And, and that's just something that has never even been an issue in our space because we just don't
Yep.
give it any oxygen. And I think when women are supported economically and emotionally and mentally, communities are better off for it, right?
Yeah,
They are.
Their children are better, their partners are better, and we just love to do our small part with
I
that.
think the reputation or the perception of women having to be competitive, that's something learned at birth. Like, I grew up in a household where I was competing for my dad's attention with my sibling, or as a teenager, competing for male attention, or
Totally.
whatever it is. But that, to me, is something that it only has as much power as you give it. Just like in the artist community, I've found really collaborative people, whereas people, try to make it seem like it's competitive. It's not when you get down to it. There's just so many beautiful relationships out there.
Right.
I love that. Okay. So, before we wrap up, where can people find you on social media and in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, so our physical addresses are 214 and a half North Tejon, so just right across from Acacia Park. And then 2518 West Colorado, which is, right across from Snow White, like right in the heart of Old Colorado City. And then conveniently, Circa is only 8 doors down. So right on the corner of Colorado and 25th. Is where you can find us in person. And, obviously we thrive in person. We don't have an online store just because our stuff is so unique.
I love that.
Yes. We are always happy to ship. We are always happy to facilitate like a FaceTime conversation or sending photos back and forth.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
We always will accommodate folks that are not local, but it just doesn't make sense for us right now to have a store that showcases.
And you're honoring that passion you have around the relationships and experience part.
Exactly. But then online you can catch us at shopeclectico.com, circavintageshop.com, and then Instagram. All 3 stores have accounts as well. Yeah.
And we will put all of those links in the comments.
Yes. One little thing before we go.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool when I walked into your store up the street, how you have the little Polaroids of all the vendors. I was like, that is so neat. It's like you walk by and it's like, wait a minute, what's the pictures? I was like, these are the vendors.
That's such a different vibe than walking into a store where they have Polaroids of shoplifters. You're like putting a new spin on it, a positive light. Yeah.
Never thought of that. That is hilarious.
He is not getting a Christmas gift this year. He already has his.
We love everything we do is personal.
Yeah.
And so we just love people being able to see like there's one thing in concept of this is all local artists, and it's different to be like, oh my God, here's all of their faces.
Yeah.
And, they're anywhere from 19 to 69 and, you know, like just everywhere in between. So
very inclusive. I love that.
Glad you noticed that.
That is so funny.
We just implemented downtown too. It's next to the community board. So yeah, we've got non-shoplifting QC.
Yeah.
Photos of our vendors there. So.
I love that. It's definitely a different vibe.
It's the opposite of, shoplifting shaming.
Yeah. No shaming, only promotion.
It's actually trying to deter shoplifters by saying, like, this is who you would be stealing from.
That's
Don't do
beautiful.
it.
This cute little face.
Humanize it. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, this is Creative Takeover. We'll see you on the next episode. Don't forget to shop. Holiday seasons are coming up, and we'll see you in the stores.
And if you want more information about how to sponsor this podcast, you can send us an email to creativetakeover719@gmail.com.